that I need to remind myself, I can always refer back to it a little bit too. So I think
That's
I
so cool.
mentioned last time, with any business, we go through that process of just looking at, simply putting in the search mechanisms, what comes up when we put that in. So I think we mentioned
Yep.
last time with you, we've got this
Yep.
Google business, which is great. Um, you got some reviews in there, which is awesome. And I think I sort of said there's a bit of Pareto, probably slightly less than Pareto, but particularly for a service business like yourself, it's great that you've got that. We post updates through to Google as well as, you know, which you can do despite the Google Plus failing many years ago. Um,
Yep.
Clearly you want to see your website sitting up top. Good that there's no competing sort of people sitting above you for that are paid stuff. Um,
Yep.
Interesting that it is your socials that come up, but the ones that come up so high for it's rare that YouTube is the highest one, albeit that YouTube is a Google product, but it would appear to be because of the fact that you've got quite a good following on YouTube. Um,
It's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
It's-
let's just say comparative to other small businesses, for
yeah.
instance,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yep. Yep.
consultants. LinkedIn, well, again, and sometimes it can be time because again, you've got a sort of what I would suggest is a modest following on LinkedIn, and yet it still is your second most thing. And similarly with probably Facebook, but just as much as anything, and then you come in for yourselves. So it is interesting that little suite of socials that sort of are showing up and knocking down any directory type sites and industry perhaps ones. Which used to be the whole bag 15 or 20 years ago, right? You'd get picked
Yep.
up on True Locals and other free type directory type sites, whether you meant to be on there or not. I think I might have mentioned this last time, just in terms of. I think we talked around website. Let's go have a look at your website rather than have a look at this because um, and whilst we don't, I think I mentioned last time we don't have any keys or any involvement with the website. We sort of it's too important for us not to sort of have an opinion, if that makes
Yes. Yes.
sense.
That's fine.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so we've been taught to read websites top left, down, and up, right? So the advantage I think with you, sales ethos, there's an element of it's in the name what you do, but then really your positioning is then this, it's ethical, holistic, and then scientific is where you get your ether, which is quite clever, right? And then it's sales training.
Thank you.
The you may be able to, the argument might be in actual fact, sales ethos, sales training is actually what the business is, but on that basis, it's almost, and then you've kind of got these call to action buttons, which is great. A lot don't do. And then your main almost contact us is old style, or almost gym style is your 1300 number up the top. Does that actually say anything? If those 974 377,
No. No.
or it's just a 1300? Oh, there you go.
It's just a
I
one.
wasn't sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, what you can do, I'm not sure if it's do you know if it's on a WordPress site?
It is WordPress. Yeah.
Yeah, because often you can have in this top rung up the top, you could actually put, you could have the phone number, you already got it there, but you could have an email address, have all your social links sitting up the top here, because particularly in small business land, although I think sometimes people copy the corporates, I expect that sometimes people put their socials down here, right? Which no
Yeah.
one's ever going to
Yeah.
go looking for. So these ones that you've already got, and it's kind of interesting because you've linked them. Remember, they were the three sites that, from a search, were the ones that were showing
Oh,
up
yeah.
in
Yep.
search, right? So when we're using socials, more typically, we're trying to go looking for the people that and may well know you, rather than the other way around from a search perspective, where they're sort of looking you up by name, or whether that's your name or the sales ethos. But we sort of typically recommend putting them up the top, and then clearly adding those other things like your Google Map, your Instagram, if and when created, and X. So from a Twitter perspective, so those sort of six profiles, we sort of suggest putting them back up the top there. That's all. And sometimes people also add in. You would have seen how you can add in the feed, right? So you can actually have the feed that's showing that you're posting through and that sort of stuff too, which is another thing, which is almost maybe something that could, just by a slight reconfiguration here, have these things or your socials up the top, but maybe just have and maybe put this little bit of information over here, over there, and maybe you could have a your Facebook feed, for instance, that's sitting in there
I
just
think the
from a proofing
I think the
perspective.
thinking behind this is that the social media exists to point people to the website
That's
and not
right.
the other way around. So if they're landing on my homepage, I don't want them to go to my social.
Primarily, except that people then, and even the good thing is you've got it there to be able to click, and it clicks away. Often people make the mistake of clicking
Mhm.
over, so you don't want it to be
Yep,
a window away from your website. But if there's something that I
yep,
can go and then proof you, I want to be able to see, what's he talking about on his socials and that sort of stuff. So as I said, the
yep,
main one,
yep,
particularly if it's being used, and particularly if you're doing any advertising,
yep,
it is worth having just that bit of proofing because, as I said,
yep.
and I agree with you, you don't want to lose them from your website. You do want to get them there, and social is a good way. But there is that element of like, particularly if they're proofing you against others, they want to see what you're putting
Yep.
out there, perhaps compared to what others are putting out there. And some people use it as a real hack. Like even where I'm sitting at the moment, I might have, this is a co-worker space, I Harvest, so I do their socials, and in there, in there, if I was to show you, so they it's a lazy thing. Well, it's not lazy; it's kind of clever in a way. Um, but if you look in news, their news is simply, I think, if I click on that, is it going to load slowly? There you go. Their news is simply my Instagram posts.
Oh, okay.
So in a
Nice.
way,
Yep,
uh, it's all about sort of having it talk to one another and how you might use it. So, but again, I agree. Presumably, if I click on any of these, they're going to take it to where you want them to take you. And it's just more about, and I agree. Anyway, as I said, I agree with you. Your website's definitely your best content repository for all your information.
mhm,
Yeah, but there's some little tweaks and things just to get the same and more of the benefits that you're kind of getting already a little bit around that sort of interconnectivity and that they're all talking and singing from the same songbook sort of thing.
mhm.
Um, I think the reason I did that snapshot is because, as I said, people don't necessarily go all the way to the bottom. Don't need to talk about this one. I think we talked a little bit last time. Just my preference with all covers is to actually have real imagery. In fact, I went to a fresh meeting this morning where the photographer talked. Her name is Danny. I don't know if you've come across Danny.
Yes,
Um,
blue tree. Yep.
yeah, and she's very good, and so she's I don't haven't worked directly with Danny as yet, but there's certainly a number of my business that work with the likes of Danny, where there's, and we talked about it last time, I think, where you kind of want to be the hero, but you also want your clients to be the hero. Um, so,
Yes.
so for you, it might be speaking to a full room of people that are getting training and getting the good word, and it can even be that you're almost back to the camera, or sometimes people do it with their side onto the camera, but it sort of heroes you, but it also at the same time it
Gotcha.
kind of heroes your client. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
so
Agree with that. Yep.
yeah, and I think it's sort of generally it's not necessarily put the name and other things in there again because often we can find it elsewhere and we know to look, but it is
Yeah.
important to put it in here, to say in actual fact, um, what's your title? I would actually have that in there. You're the director and sales trainer at Ethos, and then you go into what do you do? Because you've probably got about
Yep.
another 100 characters you could use in here, which is really the meat of it. For you, and we kind
Yep.
of want our client to be all star, if that makes sense. For their own business, really. So again, without
Yep.
labouring that point, same deal, right? So you probably just it's you largely, and so it would just be an image. I would use the same cover, and it may be that you use you know this sort of cover in the first instance, because it's always going to have a logo for the business, so it's going to have this logo, and if this
Yep.
sort of banner image, is not a bad one, albeit that this banner works because you're putting in this information here. There's possibly other banners
Mhm.
you could use, but I'd use the same banner across all socials realistically.
Yep. Yep.
If this sort of thing, again, you're clearly speaking to somebody. Yeah, so I'm sure you'd probably got imagery that you could fall back on, and it doesn't need to be, you know. even in a session that I do with people, that doesn't need to be the perfect one straight off, just the best one. And then if another better one comes along, then update it to a better one, sort of thing. But as I said, it's just something that
Mhm.
shows the client as much as showing you, and real imagery. And again, you've
Mhm.
got about 120 characters in here that you can use. Um,
Yeah.
I
The company page has been somewhat of just an afterthought. So that's the reason that yeah, I just
Yeah, no, as I said, but at least you've got it. You've
yeah,
created it, so
yeah,
in the
yeah,
name, and you
yeah,
own it. And as I said, it is something that makes you searchable. I think what you've done a
yeah,
lot of is these sort of unique pieces of content. So, I think I might have said to you last time, it's probably better to think of, okay, if I'm going to talk to camera and create a bit of content, maybe do a vlog that I can put on my website, and then I'll repurpose it across all the socials, so that, you can, a social post could then be a snapshot of what you're talking about. And then when they want to read more or watch more, or you probably always make it they can watch, but you want to find out more, you can take them back to the website where they can see the other things that you're posting about basically in there. Um, Otherwise, there's an element of, if it's you just always talking to the camera like this, it actually probably makes you look smaller than I thought than your prospects may think you are. You know what I mean? So there's a number of things that on your website that could be. So you might choose to do, I don't know how often you've been doing these, but let's say you're doing once a month or once every fortnight. In between that, you could be talking about the types of sales training you provide, who you provide it for, all that sort of stuff, which is already listed probably on the website, right? So, you know, for us, it's not rocket science. It's like what's the type of sales training that you provide and for who, and each of these provides the content that can be repurposed, right? It's just more about having imagery for these sorts of things, right? This is a great. So, this I think I might have. Now that I look at
yep,
it, this sort of one makes a good cover, I reckon. Because straight away you
yep,
got some pupils in there, they're getting all the good oil. You got the thinker up the top, that's nice. But yeah, so any one of
yep,
this is a great page for repurposing, right?
yep,
Professional sales training with their and this post might get repurposed, you know, every couple of months, realistically. It's just
yep,
depending on how things go across, and it's just
yep.
constantly reiterating what you do and how you do it. Yeah,
Yep. I might just interrupt there.
yeah,
So yeah, I actually I really appreciate you going through
mm.
all of the stuff that what I've currently got.
Yeah,
What I'm
yeah.
really interested in is where can you take me?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Because right
it's only by
now,
showing you this is in the setup and revision session. That's exactly what we do.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
effectively
yeah, yeah,
in the checklist. It's like, what cover are we going to
yeah,
use, and then
yeah, yeah,
when we actually go through it, as I said, we
yeah.
just basically update all of these. So
Uh-huh.
effectively, whether it's the initial setup and revision, it's actually just
Mhm,
updating all of these so that um,
mhm.
actually, he's a good man, Simon. There you go.
Oh, you
I
know
know
him?
Simon. Yeah, he's around the corner from me.
Oh,
And
nice.
so, yeah. So to your point, yeah, I hear what you're saying. So effectively, um, what and the reason for doing this was just to see where you're currently at. And
Yep,
as I said,
yep, yep.
it's not. But what I think, you know, to it's my opinion that you're doing a lot of things better than many people, if that makes sense.
Thank
But
you.
it just needs some sort of
Yeah,
almost some guidance around. I don't think you maybe realize how much content you've got available to you, and that would be for somebody like me in terms of you don't need to be creating unique bits of content every time. So essentially, I'll talk through that in a second, but I think I showed you. Did I talk about this last time? This model? Did I show you this?
which part?
So can you see that? So the model, yeah. So effectively, the model we use, this little infographic, is about taking
Mhm.
information sources,
Uh-huh.
content from your website and repurposing to
Yep,
Google and the four social sites. So let's just
yep,
say it was that one sales training page. So it
yep,
might well be that sales training is something we post about on a Monday, and depending on how often we're posting, if it's only a couple of times a week, then we probably talk about the services you provide, and then on the second post of the week might be about us slash what other people are saying us. So it could be reviews, good. Although I think you've done blogs, you've done other sort of things. So it kind of depends on what content is available. Let's say you got three. So again, we just work out, well, okay, what's the main thread of what we're posting on Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Is
yep,
it, as I said, is it blogs and reviews on end of the week? Is it services we provide start of the week? That sort of thing. So effectively, but we're taking it from the website, little
Yep.
snippets, and repurposing it down here. So
Yeah.
so it's
Cool.
no created new content. It's content that should be and is already placed on the website. Does that make sense? So
Yep.
I say there's no created. It could be that we put
Well,
reviews in a Canva type tile and just to tidy them up, just to make them look a little bit smarter.
cool.
Yeah, but
Cool.
that's the
I
strategy.
have.
Is yeah.
I also have my course content that I'm happy for you to take snippets from as well. So I'm getting them revamped as we speak.
Yeah, and I think so.
So
Course content would be an interesting one. Is sort of if you've got course content, it might be again one of those sort of things. Is that I wonder how they might also be just from a juicy wording and that sort of stuff. How that might also be added to the website, perhaps. So if there's specific courses and it's a bit of a synopsis, that sort of stuff.
yeah.
So I guess I always feel like it's best to think website first because then I can grab that content rather than have it say sitting on a PDF and then I still might finish up copying and pasting, and I'm happy to have access to it. But it's just as I said, how do we make sure that you don't just get the benefit of the social media share? You also get the benefit of it pointing back to where people can read more. Again, we usually with the social media posts, you sort of one or two sentences, um, and then a contact and learn more, and there's some hashtags. Effectively, it's usually depending on the something like Twitter. I think you're limited to how many characters, right? So we're often copying off. You only got your two sentence streams, whereas LinkedIn, yes, you can write a bit more. The question is, should you? Realistically, people often won't for instance, on Facebook, beyond the first couple of sentences, most people won't click on a box to read the rest of it, sort of thing. You know what I mean? They'll read the first bit. Hence, why video and good imagery works well, is because okay, well, this looks interesting, and then you want to kind of have things clickable within the above the fold, if that makes sense, rather than below the fold. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
and it's on Instagram. It's only when you're advertising you can actually create a clickable link. So you can have clearly we often just put the website in the bio, that sort of stuff. So we're still pointing them through there. But yeah, look, any other content that's fabulous. Any more content that's available to use, that's great. I mean, sometimes people do have image libraries, and we're using those, and they're not necessarily sitting on websites. But as I said, in the main, it often makes sense to have your content sitting on the website because it's then easy enough for us to grab it as well. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yeah.
and the
Well, what I
benefits
imagine
of yeah.
is
So, yeah, go.
what I imagine is yeah, like in terms of that content library, like if I just create a drive, Google Drive, share it with you, then you can just pick and choose whatever you like
Yeah, if
from it.
you, as you said,
Yeah.
particularly if there's photos to go with it, but I'd just be I'm thinking more often than not, uh, it's just whether it sort of forms the basis of um, of information either as a micro blog or otherwise that could go on the website. That's all. So, because on your website you do have the blog, right? Um, and
Yep.
you've it's you sort of haven't done a lot of those, but what you have been doing, those videos you've been doing and posting, have you put them on the website at all, or not really? No,
No.
because I wonder whether I guess there's an element of tidiness in this. GB, it looks like you've done is that a lot of blogs you've done in the past?
Yes.
Done a lot,
Yes.
right? So straight
I
away,
used to be very consistent. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you've done a lot. And I guess
Yeah.
the question with your because what's your more recent thinking then? How you have been doing these talk to camera. Is would you see there's a place for them on the website?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge has just been making the time to do it. That's why we're talking.
Yeah. So
So
let me by way of
yeah.
example. So where we got this. So I think That's got a bin lie, isn't it? There we go. So that video that you put up.
I'm just
So
going to quickly unlock my
no,
front door
you're
for my
yeah.
son to come home. Just
Oh yeah, yeah.
bear with me 1 sec. Okay.
So these videos, and I guess this is a question without notice because it's probably why with these videos, have you also loaded them to YouTube? Are these in a
Yeah,
playlist?
yeah,
They are in a
yeah.
playlist.
They are. Yeah, yeah. They
Yeah,
should be. Yeah.
yeah. So I guess it's almost and maybe that's enough then in terms of so if I go on so the only reason I was going to say that is that you know any of these videos I've got capacity to download them through the scheduler I use as well. So um,
Mhm.
so okay. Anyway, that's getting into tic tacs. But the reality is, let's go back to what you asked before. So essentially, my it may well be if you're because you could very easily embed video because particularly if that's where you've started to move a lot of focus, right? The only question would be whether where it would sit on something like this, and I guess and whether there's a need, given you've already got it sitting on your YouTube under a playlist. I imagine. Do you? Um, it's the second time today I've come onto someone's. Oh, there you go. Have you
Okay.
have you ever promoted this show reel?
No, no, I haven't.
Yeah, because that straight away from a Facebook advertising perspective, it's brilliant when you've got a show reel, and it's
Hmm.
particularly brilliant if you've never promoted it. So, because that would it would often be offer significant insights. So a lot of these are shorts, and
Yep.
maybe there's got to be a way that that you could almost integrate your YouTube um, into your website to a degree. Just so you, as you said, maybe you don't need to be uploading every time you're doing one of these little posts. Um,
Hmm.
but understanding it's very easy for me to repurpose these across all the socials, and so there is an element of like, oh, I've just done and uploaded a video. Can you share that across my socials, for instance? The question is though,
Hmm.
do you want it? And then you use any video you're going to use back to your and you've got bucket load. So again, I would see this as almost like you got blog and you got video content, and then you've got your website content. That just basically explains to people who you are, what you do, and how you do it, sort of thing. And more importantly, how they can get involved. I think that's the main thing, right? Um, but yeah, just getting back to well, what do we do? I think which was your
Yep.
your question, which is the main thing that I sent post our previous meeting was really about, well, firstly, why do you do it, right? So I don't know if this is big
Hmm.
enough for you to see, but and I don't know if you've
I've
had
got it
time
on my.
if you've had a look. So
I've got it on my side screen as well.
yeah, and so the first thing, and hence looking at those sites, is just to make sure that they're all on brand. So in other words, profiles where it should be, imagery is consistent across all the sites, and you actually own the name. I think there might be a couple of sites that need to be created, and then you're owning those names too. Um, and
Yep.
part of the we talk about differentiating you from others. Um, the only there's plenty of differentiation you would have other than working with me, but one of the differentiation is often the fact that there isn't a consistency of posting and or advertising to socials of people in any industry, let alone the sales training industry. And so
Yep.
it becomes as I said, a manner in where you hopefully would get competitive advantages, because we know that um, you know, of all small business, less than 50% even have a Facebook page. And then of those ones, less than 30% have tried advertising. And often they'll say, well, I tried, but it didn't work. Well, it's a bit like, well, how did you do it? So, um,
Yep.
and then the intent of doing what we're doing is clearly to be top of mind. the top of mind works very well with people such as yourself, myself, that are networkers in the first place. So the organic
Yep.
posting and the repetition and the consistency of organic posting across the five channels enables you to stay in front of those people that know of you or are likely to refer you or have friends that need to know you, that sort of thing. The
Yep.
advertising is where we're going to try and get to people that don't know you at the moment. They don't know you through other avenues. So effectively, we do that by way of saved audiences, and we put in there, where are the people that you're wanting to work, and we try and make a navigatable haystack. So effectively, in most instances, that haystack is ideally between sort of 200 and 250,000, no more, is because the likelihood is how many people do you need to get in front of without just burning your money? Because I think
Yep.
often, Facebook will push okay, here's a target audience you could go to, but there's no point necessarily trying to hit 2 million people living throughout wherever, Australasia, if they're not likely to be doing business with you. So what we try and do, to a degree, we use a bit of a if you heard in franchise, they talk about the sort of the Olympic rings, right? So in other words, conquer Melbourne, conquer Victoria, or conquer Sydney,
Oh.
or conquer.
Yep.
So in other words, you spread out with your where you sort of conquer, and that could be,
Yep.
I've always been inner west, inner greater west, into the CBD. Like, again, it doesn't have to be by city and state, but and typically, the people that you've often done the most work with, whether that's by region or type, are people, and then you've talked about this in terms of medical profession and those sort of things, is also where you focus as well. So when we're doing saved audiences, it's not just where they are, but what they're interested in and what the type of sales they're trying to make is. And clearly, there's going to be professions that you've had that experience in and or have a want to help, greater with. So that's just something that we do in the planning session around. And I guess this is kind of this next little stuff, which right. So you create the infrastructure, so the assets, the channels, and revise those channels, and then we sort of work through in a planning session. Part of that is we do it's a 3 + 2 hour session, so we're not talking about effectively we want to get it done and get on and do it, right? So, but within the setup and revision, in your case, we may well lean more heavily into the planning because we probably then go into um, Facebook ads and saved audiences. But effectively, we still want you to be connecting. I see you've got the gold icon on your LinkedIn. Have you used that um, sales navigator at all with your LinkedIn when you're going out to people?
When I am going out to people,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah.
I'll
Because
activate that. Yeah.
Yeah, because clearly, so I haven't got that, but LinkedIn, but I have had it. I have it whenever it gets offered to me for free, because in my opinion, in my humble opinion, people don't even know how to ride the bicycle, and then they get given this fast-paced vehicle of Sales Navigator, and then again, it's in the main up until about 3 months ago, you could always do just about everything that the gold badge enables you, albeit not in quite an organized manner. You could approach anybody, is my point, and then you could send personal and direct messaging and all that sort of stuff. Um, Now they actually literally have limited you to six people you can contact without that nowadays. So for me, all of a sudden, I'm having to go to these network meetings where you're hitting connect, and then you're actually having to personalize the thank you after. Hey, thanks for connecting,
Oh.
Ben. I'm out of personalized invites. It was really nice to meet you at today's such and such. Anyway, um, so yeah, so then around that sort of consistency of message, so communications, as I said, we're generally doing 2 to 3 times a week for that sort of extra small to extra small. And that's the consistency together with then Facebook advertising. Now, the biggest question I usually get is, well, how much to spend on advertising? Well, what we usually suggest to people is a sort of $5 to $6 a day spend, so that we can
Yep.
split for major awareness. So, in other words, reach and impressions, and split that for traffic. So, let's say you were
Yep.
doing $5 a day, it would be $2.50, or we might even do $2 for awareness and $3 for traffic, so per day. And the idea being the difference between getting seen, and you would know this if you've had a Facebook page for a while, right? So your insights, and I'm just doing actually reports this week. So the difference between doing advertising and not doing any advertising is the difference between having hundreds of people, if you're lucky, see your posts per month, compared to 10 to 15,000, no matter what you do, see your post, and particularly
Yep.
largely your advertised post. You've got
Yep.
a show reel that they're the best things to be able to promote.
Yep.
So I have absolutely no doubt that that would get seen in quite high numbers. And then the intent is those hundreds of people. Usually it's sort of that 500 plus potentially per month actually clicking through the website based on a
Yep.
$5 a
Um,
day spend. But as I said,
just
split,
with
yeah.
regard to that, I might need a bit of persuading as to why to put focus on Facebook, because my main audience at the moment is LinkedIn. So I've
Yeah,
got 7,000 organic followers. Yeah, close to 8,000
that's your
on that.
connection, isn't it? That's your personal connection,
Yeah,
not your followers.
yeah.
So,
It's followers and connections.
as
Yeah, yeah,
in, yeah, I was meaning. So again, the bigger picture is sales ethos, right? Not Ben.
yeah,
So we're probably roughly the same in terms of how many people we're
yeah,
connected with, but
yeah,
um, neither of us run a brand that's called our name, right? So the reality
yeah,
is LinkedIn's organic for your company is far more generous than what Facebook's is. And so
yeah,
it's not that you're not going to be using LinkedIn, it's
yeah,
just you're probably not going to spend money on it. And to your question around, because it's actually it's quite high yield, and it's I've not yet had anybody tell me that in Australia you can spend money on LinkedIn advertising and it can be worthwhile, other than doing what you're doing, around having that gold, the badge and the sales navigator, and using it in that way,
yeah,
but not promoting your services. It just won't work.
yeah,
Whereas Facebook, it's exactly the same people. You just go find those people. So, you and I are still on Facebook. You're on
yeah,
Facebook, right? So it's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
about it's just about getting those people. And remember, there's 18 million of us on Facebook, whereas there's only, depending on who you ask, somewhere between 6 and 10 million on LinkedIn. Right? And
Oh, okay.
also, depending on who you talk to, how they use LinkedIn. Even
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
networkers don't use LinkedIn the way I love LinkedIn, right? And it's the
yeah,
key personal and direct tool. I agree with you 100%. And
yeah,
hopefully, there's some little hacks that not hacks, just things that I do that I suggest is it's certainly around growing your company, but it's always about
yeah,
making your company and business proofing. So, um, and the thing about, as you said, convincing, well, I guess my whole pricing model has been done so that people don't leave opportunity on the table
yeah,
because of just posting. As I said, we're depending on which option people choose. It's roughly $50 a week. We sort of suggest that people at least look at what the difference is when you put money on, because it's the only area Facebook, and because Facebook owns Instagram, it's the only area they're generous now. They're not generous. As soon as you spend $1, Facebook is generous, very generous compared to anything
yeah,
else. There's nothing
yeah,
else that is as generous as Facebook.
yeah.
You can't spend
Yeah.
$5 a
Okay.
day on any campaign.
So what you're saying is that it's fine to continue, like, um, it's fine to post the stuff on LinkedIn, but if we add Facebook to the mix, because like the cost is not the big problem. It's
Mm.
just like, is it worth the time and attention, right?
Yeah, well,
And
look, as I said, it's interesting that you say that, because often what I find with a lot of freelance is that they spend too much time mainly looking at Instagram around business. But look, realistically, people, that argument that my client is on one channel and not another is actually, they're on the channels. It's just how you reach them. So realistically, yes, and it's almost the point, right? So the fact is that um, your your look at the fresh networking, for instance, right? So I would say fresh networking are probably potentially around their activity is more likely to be higher on Facebook. And even if you looked at fresh
yeah,
networking itself, when it's posting and the way it does it as a business, um, how active they are potentially around LinkedIn compared to in terms of the business, I'm talking about promoting the
Yeah.
business and talking about the business and who's in the business and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's not sort of one or the other. So realistically, when we're doing it, we're actually posting the same comms just across the board, right? Which is sort of
Yeah.
the and for you personally, in fact, I got one guy who's a massive right on LinkedIn, and so I actually and he does that through himself. As he's got a big promotional business up in Sydney. So that sort of stuff, it would be more as the point is that, yeah, continue what you're doing, especially if that's been working for you. That's fabulous. It's almost like, well, what then does the business do, and what sort of things can you do to
Okay.
help
So,
the
so,
business
so
side?
what you're saying is that with Facebook, that we're going to reach the same audience, but on multiple platforms. That
Why?
way, it
Yeah,
maximizes the exposure. I suppose the number of touch points.
exactly. So effectively, so that those people that are more active on Facebook, they're going to see it. Those people that want to refer you and share your details to their friends and others on Facebook can do it, right? Because
Yeah.
we kind of know the level activity. Um, but yeah, it's not to say that we sort of disregard one or the other, and similarly where people, and I don't think at the moment you don't have Twitter, do you? Or did you have Twitter?
Oh, I have the account, but I
Yeah,
don't
it's
touch it.
about just owning it and right and just being. In fact, I think with Twitter is
Yeah.
where you put your cover there, which is good. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's about just having that consistency of communications across all of the platforms so that you don't miss out. So those people that love Twitter, they're still going to be able to see it. But there's all sorts of things in terms of Twitter is very good to get the attention or potentially get the attention of other businesses and brands that you want to be connected to that you might otherwise struggle to, if you know what I mean. It's often
Mhm.
the easiest way. And there is some homework elements of what we do, right? It's like, okay, Ben, you want to help build this up. Well, you invite people in, you connect with others, you do all these sort of things so that they'll hopefully connect back and start following your stuff. So there's a little bit of excuse me, in the planning session side of things. That's it's almost by extension of the stuff you've probably been doing on LinkedIn. Just going to have a look on your LinkedIn here, where because I wondered whether you because as you said you have a significant. That's great. You've got that significant following.
Mhm.
Um, you know that with that following, I'm sure I'm following this now, right? So and it's not that you've missed the boat, but there's an element of 58 followers on here, right, of the
Yeah.
business compared to 7,000. That's an amazing opportunity for you. You got 250 invites every month. You could be dragging them into the business, right? So you can invite people every month to follow your company, right? Um, so and it's just something that, again, it's homework, and what I'm people that I've been reporting to, whether I've been working with them for 7 or 8 years or whether I've been working with them for 2 or 3 months. It's the constant reminding, you should be doing this and do this. It'll help you help, the business grow and its exposure, right? So at the moment, even if you, so with these posts, well, clearly they're not going to have any level of success by comparison to when you post them on your own site, because
Yeah.
you got potentially 7,000 people are going to see this, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever the algorithm will do it. Whereas on here, when you've only got the 50 followers, you got a lot less that are going to see it. But I can tell
Mhm.
you when you actually. So Diffy Social for my business, there's some similarities, right? Sales training and social media. Effectively, I got more or less the same followings on Facebook and on LinkedIn for my company, and I can tell you, it's far more generous than what Facebook is. So to your point earlier, right, around organic, it's much more generous organically than what Facebook is. So I don't know,
Yeah.
1,700 people following. It's actually just dropped this month because they've changed their reporting. So you can see, like, it's only
Oh.
238 impressions, but I've also come up 155 times in appearances. Now you could check that out on your one as well. But as I said, you'll find that I agree with you in terms of organically, LinkedIn is better, but you just want to keep inviting your followers into that. So, but that's again something we normally talk about in sort of planning session and that sort of stuff. If it's not something that's already sort of embedded in what you do, um,
Yep.
yeah. So, um, Yeah. So as I said, basically in terms of those steps you were mentioning, usually we sort of have a 3 plus 2 hour day together where we go through that. Now, if that, I think you might have said, oh look, that's a long time. So if that time, I've got actually got a canine dog trainers tomorrow that I'm setting up where they, we can split it into separate days, and maybe that's the way to do it. And we can also see how long it takes us, given I have fast tracked certain ones. In fact, including one with Jake, um, just to get behind it. But I think in a planning sense, I don't like shortcutting the planning, particularly where if you're talking about content and how you might get that content to me and or on the website. I think it's sort of important to go through that process so that we can kind of make sure that what's then being shared out um, is the best and most timely. Because
Yep.
clearly with your website, realistically, it would appear, it looks like there's a blog to be done, a unique blog post where I could just go retro for the next um, 20 plus months, a whole, um, or sorry, 20 plus weeks and not even cover the same blog, right? You've done a lot of blogs even. So, and again,
Yeah.
when you're repurposing, that doesn't matter because then I don't imagine most of them are time bound, right? They
No.
don't talk about
No.
things that you're worried about. So again, they're good content, um,
Yep.
things to be shared out because I'm sure they're juicy words. They'll help the Google algorithms and they'll help the people that are currently following you sort of bring it to their attention again. But it is also the sort of things where you might sort of say, well, we need to prioritize this, this, and this sort of thing around what's get posted as
Hmm.
well. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. Um, yeah. Sorry if that's a I, I hope that makes sense. I'm a little bit, I guess, particularly when people have some similarities in terms of as a business. I kind of do have a sense of what I believe is the works best, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And um, so that's good in many ways, right? But it doesn't mean I
Hmm.
can't be challenged. So yeah, feel free. I certainly don't want to be defensive around the things, and or if there's things that, like you said, in terms of being, uh, understanding what the benefits of, certain platforms may well be. Um, yeah, happy to sort of. Uh, go through and talk with that in terms of, as I said, it's largely, the two criteria I'm usually doing in reporting is visibility, how many people have seen it across all the platforms,
Yep.
and what's the impact. How many people do you look at your Google Analytics much?
A little bit. Once a month, I review with my
You have a
SEO
look at it.
company.
Yep. So that's good. So we clearly don't have capturing conversion. So in terms of, I can't really speak the language of sales like you can. At the end of the day, I'm trying to get people to people's website, but once they've got there, or the front door, or the phone, or whatever, effectively there's an element of, well, that's what I was wanting to do. So, and even when we're doing posts, we'll still have phone numbers or emails if that's what people want to have on them. But the reality is, what we can figure is how many. There's a thing called pixel flares, so that sit behind the website. So it sort of tells us how many people are going there, and so it sort of helps us then know that certain elements of what we're doing are working. Um, Now that said, I've got certain businesses where we don't do any promotion, as in not doing any Facebook advertising promotion, but their flares might be very high for whatever reason. Port Melbourne Business Association is a good example, for instance, where people are, I don't know, searching or looking up. But uh, if they're not doing too many other activities that are trying to generate business or interest, then it's usually a good way of us measuring, well, it's having an effect. And hopefully, when we start posting and when we're reporting, we want to sort of see those flares go up, right, in terms of how many people are visiting websites, particularly where that's an important part. And clearly, the other thing is that we want to see is a lot more people seeing the posts that are going out, that are being posted. So, yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. So it's, yeah, for somebody like yourself. I don't think it's rocket science, but it is something. But I think it. I feel like it would really, uh, it would be good in terms of just straightening up. I think of your posting schedule, across the platforms, because I think clearly you're good at what you do. How are you finding business at the moment? Is it
Yeah,
coming through? Yeah.
it's yeah, it's been very good. Feeling very blessed that yeah, there's been a constant stream of work coming in.
Mm,
And so it's allowed me to look at opportunities like this. Um, and like I said in our first meeting, I'm not overly concerned about getting ROI straight away from this
mhm,
because it doesn't need to. But I'm looking more long term. So I'm thinking that I've got this captive audience of 8,000 people on LinkedIn, and and I'm doing all of the other platforms pretty shabbily. But even if we just did it for the 8,000,
mhm,
um, because I'm constantly connecting with sales managers, I want to feed them with stuff that they find interesting. That
mm,
when the time is right, then they can come to me, and it will also synergize with any sort of direct outreach that I do with them
mm.
in the future.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm looking at this at the moment. Yeah.
And I noticed that you were on a podcast with the former David Guest. Is that David
Yeah,
Guest?
yeah,
Yeah. Do you have much to do with
yeah.
him, or is that just a once-off sort of thing?
No, 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 no. It's going to be a regular thing. Next one's going to be in November, I think. Um, so on a regular cycle, every couple of months, I'll be running those webinars.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
and, and again, and again, that's the socials feed into that, and that feeds
Exactly.
into the pipeline and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw that as an opportunity as well. Yeah, so that's good in terms of having somebody like David. He's got some good communities, I think, as well. So he's been around for a long time. It's fair to say.
He has, he
Yeah.
has,
So,
yes,
and I'm fairly sure
yes,
I've done a podcast or two, maybe,
yeah,
with him as well at different times, but only ad hoc. Um, yeah, no,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
because as you said, any of that sort of content can also be shared. Particularly as it's been created, you've got access to it as well. Um, yeah, so uh, and I think where there are those sort of cross type opportunities. Yeah, again, it would just be a matter of working out what priorities around, if there is, and that's what happens sometimes. So we have as I said, it's usually in three streams that we determine what gets posted. But then if something all of a sudden, whether it's a big opportunity or something you've done, then clearly things can get bumped, and it's just a matter of then, yeah. So just so in terms of understanding a working week, so we typically schedule our posts at least a week in advance on a Monday. So when we're taking, as I said, that from the website, but if someone then turns around and says, "Well, this has just happened. Can you put something out?" That could be as simple as a review they've just got, if that was what they're very excited about, and we just will bump something back a week or whatever, and just where we can sort of replace it with something new if that's what the opportunity happens. And maybe something like a David Guest, if all of a sudden, whether it's a webinar that's coming up and that's a priority, maybe that's the sort of thing that could potentially replace, the ongoing habit of posts, the way that they're scheduled. But yeah, so those sort of things, yeah, usually are good opportunities more than difficulties, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Yeah.
Mhm,
So yeah, but I think even just from a knowing and how you might use the platforms, I think having a really good sense of the vehicles you currently have.
mhm,
I think I've said to you, we've probably got some similarities in that um, I'm quite creative, but at the same time, I'm quite technical. And I think sometimes just knowing the technical background and having the technical and knowing that everything is the way it's set up, the way it should be set up, and that you've got full control of those vehicles, often gives quite a strong um, peace of mind to the people that we're working with, because effectively
yeah,
it's not just a matter of like, oh, Steve knows how to do it. Effectively, by going through that session, the idea is
mhm.
that people understand exactly what they've got, and hopefully the power of that, and how it can be worked through. So yeah.
Okay. All
Uh,
right. So talk me through how this is all going to look. So the first step is the
So
set up.
yeah, so usually this is just a once-off setup and planning day or days. So it's just a matter of then determining when that might suit in terms of
Mhm.
those
Okay. So
that
3 hours.
3 hour plus 2 hour session. So that's the setup and revision is here. The
Yep.
planning session is here. Um, and
Yep.
so
Okay. So
and so yeah,
1,059 for
once
setup.
that's
Yep.
done. So I mentioned then virtually the next day or days the first post is often the next day or within a couple of days of the session being done. So then we just go, right? So,
Yep.
um, thinking out loud, the obvious, particularly if it hasn't been posted for a while, something like that. And I don't know, is the show reel up to date enough? Are you happy with where the show reel's at?
Yep. It was
Yeah,
only taken last year. So
so
yes.
it's great.
Yes.
So I mean, something like that, uh, particularly around having a first little one that you could actually see the benefit of just putting a couple of dollars, it would be, as I said, I think it's a really good opportunity to sort of test that because then you don't have to go too far thinking, oh, what else would I need to put money on to promote, right? Everything else is softly, softly. It's, we work from a similar premise as what Fresh Networking does, selling it, which is ironic given your sales ethos, but maybe not ironic because realistically, we believe selling is repelling,
No,
particularly on socials, right?
it's
Yeah. So, yeah, so
it just depends on how it's done, right? And
exactly.
actually, I'm the best person to be sold to because I have very very high tolerance uh, for people's sales
Sales
approaches.
pitches. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I'm not sure if you've met Sean Resnick. So
Oh,
he's
yeah. No,
a
Sean. Yeah.
hypnotherapist. Yeah.
Hypnotherapy.
Yeah, I got him to help me with my sleep habits. Right. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
wanted him to help me to sleep earlier. And he was so hesitant to recommend that I come in for the second and the third sessions. Like he just left it in my court. He said, what do you think?"
Mm,
And I turned it back around. I said, "What do you think?
yeah. Right.
You're the therapist. You should be telling me how many sessions I should come in for." And then he said, "Oh no, it's because the whole freshie thing. He would be a lot more assertive with non-freshies, but with freshies, he puts it in their court." And I was thinking, what a shame. He really should have sold hard on me to come in for the 3 sessions
Did it work
because
after
it's been
one? Is that the thing? Did it work or not? Have you found that
it's
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 been of
definitely
benefit?
it has, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've seen considerable change. So I've seen him twice now, and I'm due for a third session.
Yeah.
But what I said to him is that, like it's actually in my best interests as his customer to
Mm,
come in for the 3 and not just go for 2
yeah. Yeah.
or even 1, right?
Yeah.
And so if it's in the other person's best interest, you should sell,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so in the same
Uh,
way, I'll share I'll share with you secrets
yeah.
at the back of my mind. This is what I'm actually thinking. I'm thinking, Steve, please sell to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please close the sale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Invite me to do business with you.
Yeah.
Because look, I'm a hot lead for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
I understand. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, effectively, as I said, we should book in the the setup and planning session as soon as it fits into your schedule, and then realistically, we can get on with
yep,
posting at a level. My suggested level, I sort of put in bold. I think you're probably a three
yep,
days a week, every second day posting across the
yep,
5 platforms. And as I said,
yep,
I do tend to look at every business as if it was me, and I'm probably a little bit like yourself. One of the things that kind of irritates me a little bit with having been a long-term networker is the amount of
yes,
meetings that often you have to sort of do, and often, and I agree with you. It's even now, I think, because my background was in community services. Yeah,
oh,
I sort of closing the deal. Hopefully, best by reading and looking and watching some of your other. Maybe it'll give me a bit more like, yeah, just close it, Steve. Just do it. Um, but there is that element of yeah. So really, in terms of next steps for us, is usually that's the question people say. Oh, what's the next steps? Well, it's just a matter of booking in
yep,
that time. Now, I yeah. So as I said, I understand that it's yeah 3 plus 2 hours maybe. If that's too long
okay.
for you in a day, then we break it up into 2 days. But yeah.
I am completely indifferent as to how long it takes. In
Mm,
fact, the shorter it is, the better.
mm,
Right? The fee is the fee. If it's $1,000 to set it up, it's
mm,
$1,000 to set it up. If it takes 5 hours, it takes 5 hours. If it takes 2 hours,
mm.
then it takes 2 hours.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um,
It essentially, I think that's awesome. As you said, it's sort of, to me, the maximum benefit is to actually, and it's probably me being overly invested, but it's very rare that I exhaust anything less than 5 hours, on the basis that, because there's always things and advantages that people can be looking at, and often questions
yep,
that they have and didn't know they were going to have. And it's also interesting that, you know different people sort of see the session in different ways. In a way, there is an element of coaching, because people are kind of learning, how we apply a model. Um, so all I know is that I don't think I've ever run a session, whether it be a 3 hour setup only, or the 5 hour where we're going through the whole lot. Which the only time that can become difficult is when you have somebody that's probably 45 plus and they're not usually on a computer. That can become very onerous. And so I'm very
yep,
mindful of more mature business owners. And I usually, with those ones, I recommend splitting the sessions, because 5 hours is just too
yep,
much in a day, just for them,
yes,
for their brains to handle. It just sort of becomes a bit mind blowing. So,
yep,
yeah, but the best flow on, particularly, with somebody like, I believe, yourself, is to do it and just get it done, and sort of go through it, and then feel like there's sort of there's a logical flow through, because the planning session includes Facebook advertising and the saved audiences. And if we do the setup and then we're doing the planning with the Facebook advertising, it can get a bit lost between one session to the next, to a degree. It's not a big deal, but at the same time, as I said, if we can flow on, we can flow on. If for family circumstances or work purposes, as I said, splitting the sessions is neither here nor there. The best thing is not splitting the sessions, though, and then doing the second session 2 months later, right? Because the best thing is to sort of do the
yep,
setup, get the planning done, hopefully within a week, and then be posting. Start a schedule of posts pretty much the day after. As I
yep,
said, it's usually the best
yep.
bet. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, I think everything looks good. I would like to just do some last minute due diligence. Can you send me any clients that you're currently working with? I just want to see the samples of the
yeah,
work that you're
yeah. Well,
doing
in
with
fact,
them.
probably the easy. I think, I don't know if, yeah. So essentially, we have a blog of. I have a blog of every client that I've gone through. So actually, I don't know why that's coming up as my. That's not my last ones. Yeah. So effectively, as soon once I've worked with them, um, essentially they're on our site. So
Ah, okay, cool. Yep.
so in fact, yeah, often people want to try go looking for themselves in terms of what they look like. Um, I can't tell you that I've certainly done a brief before for a sales trainer. I don't know if you've come across Mark Garbaletto, but he's no longer doing that nowadays. Anyways, he used to be.
Oh,
Do you know
Mark.
Mark? Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah,
know Mark.
yeah. So
He's he's changed to do this
he's he's a shop fitter.
sprays.
He's a shop fitter now. He's doing shop fitting, and primarily for medicinal marijuana clinics or something. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes,
but yeah,
yes.
so
Yeah.
realistically, well, even just by going through this, I can tell you some of them. So this one did setup and planning, and then at the moment they're doing some stuff in house. This one has a massive music festival this weekend, and when you go
How
through
do
with any
I
of these ones, you can actually
how do I
click on
get
any.
to this page here? Because I'm on your home
Oh,
website.
you click on blog. Yeah, so when you go to my website, and then at the top
Gotcha. Yeah,
you got blog, and then it opens up in a
yeah,
different WordPress actually. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, have a look at those. Bayside Heart, they're ticking along. I'm doing their first report at the moment. Tom Seager, comedian, is an interesting one. So, Victorian Working Sheep Dog Association, which I have an undergrad in sport and rec, so they were interesting, but they just ran out of money. They got no money, so
Oh,
yeah. So then this gin distillery, I did the setup and planning. but that one she was already bought in with some digital agencies. I'm not still doing her. This first aid courses, I still do her work. Um, this one, my offsite actually does this one, Blackwell Construction. Um, yeah, as I said, there's not too many
Um,
businesses, types of businesses um, that I haven't worked with. They often sort of look like the sort of networking type businesses you'd expect to find at a BNI or a Fresh Networking.
sure.
So there is a slight. So this guy's a technology digital guy. He's a good young guy. He's based out of Shepparton. Um, this one's an
Yeah.
architect.
I'll just pause you there again.
Yeah.
I'm on the blog page, and I'm trying to find the. Okay, so just scroll down on the main
Yeah.
page. Okay, cool.
Scroll. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cool. All right, I'll check it out. And then in terms of getting started, just sign the PDF, and then we'll book in the first
Yeah. Often
sessions.
just people
That's
come
where we
back.
work.
Yeah. Realistically, normally for me, Tuesday, Thursdays are usually best. So it's just something maybe to keep in mind. But um,
Yep.
Friday's probably the third is the overflow day, depending what your timing works like. If you're having a look at the blog, so just so you know, so we mentioned with something like, so say James, I don't know if you probably, but with any of them, you can click on the links to the actual client. So this one
Yes.
here, for instance, is James, and that'll take you to James' LinkedIn company because that's something you were talking about. So then with somebody like
Yep.
James, which works, he's actually quite a good example. Although I'm going to show up as being, I'll view as a member, but you can actually just look at what the updates look like for somebody like James.
Yep.
So again, he's one of those ones that works quite well along the Danny, almost the Danny style, where he had quite a bit of photos done. People like James, they trust James, all that sort of stuff. So we kind of his
Yep.
posts is just a couple of times a week. Got a lot of reviews, that sort of stuff. Um, so yeah, but any of those ones, if you
Okay.
then click on the links within the blog, you can see then what's being posted on a regular basis. You'll probably also be
Sure.
able to work out whether they're still working with us or not as well, because um, if, for instance, if you were to go to the gin one, you'll see that there's not every second day posting, or even this one actually. So there's some that
Okay.
may.
Can you do me a favor and just let me know the most current ones? Yeah.
Yeah, I think to be honest, what I did do only just recently, I've actually made a note if they're no longer working with us. So yeah, so yeah, um, yeah. If there's particular styles or yeah, so effectively most of our even yeah, whether you want to look at it through. Yeah, even on it, so even with my own socials, I tend to do a photo gallery of all of them as well as they go through. So on a, oh sorry, on a yeah, uh, on the actual, where am I going? Sorry, on the actual Facebook page as well. But I'm in the middle of a report, so hence I've got other people's reporting up. Uh, just for your understanding as well, just for your understanding. So somebody like so let's look at say any so we use a thing called Publer, which is actually what it gets puts in that way. We're able to then schedule across, as I was saying, to all the different platforms. So essentially, you're selecting
Yep.
the channels you want it sent to, and this is that
Yep.
event. If you've not got anything else going on Sunday, this musical event down at Bay Street, very worthwhile going along to. But yeah, so in terms of yeah, I think as you said, I'll do a. I can send you. I'll send you just resend you the little blog link. But yeah, I don't think there's if you were to go through the last 10, I think at least 7 of them are still active. It's clearly the more recent
Oh,
ones are
okay.
going to be
Okay.
more like the more recent ones are
So
going
the
to be,
ones.
they're the ones that are most likely to be active. It's only the ones as you scroll
Yeah.
down. I think, as I said, I think there's at least 250 blog posts in there. So I've been working
Yeah.
for a while doing it. So those ones where
Yeah.
they're no longer and it was posted a long time ago, I think so.
Yeah.
Here, so this streetwear brand, so it completed on the 11th of December 2023. So we're not posting for
Yeah.
them anymore.
Okay.
So
All
the
right.
other
Okay.
ones
No,
are
no
still
worries.
active. Yeah.
I'll take a look.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll get back to you ASAP. because this is something that is quite important to me. Yeah, so I'll just do some last minute due diligence,
Yeah, that sounds good.
and
No, that sounds good,
yep, yep,
Ben. No, that'd be great. No, it'd be a lot of fun to work with you, and I think it would be highly complimentary. So it'd be awesome. No dramas.
fantastic. All
Good
right,
on you.
thanks very much for your time, and
Oh, you're
yeah,
welcome.
I'll get back to you. Today being Tuesday, very very latest end of the week.
Sounds
So
good.
I'll make a decision by
Sounds
then.
good.
So
No worries at
being
all.
in sales, I won't keep you hanging. Put
Yeah,
it
no,
that
that's
way.
good. That's it. Yes is the best answer. No is the second best.